this meeting of the Chelmsford Select Board, February 8th, 2021. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 38, Section 18, and subsequent orders imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the town's website at www.chelmsfordma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by accessing the Chelmsford Telemedia website at www.chelmsfordtv.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post to the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. That being said, everybody keep in mind too that what is put in the chat box is part of the public record. Even if you type a private chat to somebody, that is still part of the public record. It is not private. All right. With that, we will jump right into the meeting here. So first up on the agenda, we have public service announcements.
Deb's going to do the first one.
Hello, everybody. This is
Hi, Deb.
hi. For those of you watching from home, this is Deb Siriani from the Chelmsford Senior Center. Just letting you know that we have the opportunity to help folks who need help shoveling out. We are working with the Chelmsford High School, and we have some volunteers looking for senior for service hours and are willing to help folks out with shoveling. So if you are interested in getting some help, give us a call at the Chelmsford Senior Center at 978-251-0533. Just ask for Elena and she can help coordinate it for you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Our second public service announcement is for Black History Month. The Diversity, Racial Equity, and Inclusion Committee is hosting a celebration of Black History Month on the town website. And each week they're introducing notable people of color in various categories. If you haven't seen them already, the short bios are very well done and educational. And there are also a couple of videos that employ various art forms contributing to the celebration. And I'll just add, for the DREC, their website really continues to be populated with content and resources related to various topics of diversity and inclusion. And you're welcome to check back on that frequently or sign up for notifications when something new is posted. And the last public service announcement is for the annual town election. Nomination papers for the April 6, 2021 election are now available in the town clerk's office. The last day to obtain nomination papers is Thursday, February 11th at 5 p.m. If you wish to get involved in your local government, the following seats are currently available. For townwide offices, 2 select board members for 3 years, 1 school committee member for 3 years, 3 planning board members for 3 years, 1 associate planning board member for 2 years, 1 board of health member for 3 years, 2 trustees of, of public library members for 3 years, 1 cemetery commission member for 3 years, and 1 housing authority member for 5 years. For town meeting members across the precincts, we have precinct 1 and precinct 2, 6 for 3 years, precinct 3, 6 for 3 years, and 1 for a 1-year unexpired term, precinct 4, 6 for 3 years, precinct 5, 6 for 3 years, and 2 for a 2-year unexpired term. Precincts 6 and 7 both have 6 for 3 years and 1 for a precinct 6 is 1 for a 2-year unexpired term, and 7 is 1 for a 1-year unexpired term. Precinct 8 is 6 for 3 years, 2 for a 1-year unexpired term, 1 for a 2-year unexpired term. And precinct 9 is 6 for 3 years, 2 for a 1-year unexpired term. Townwide offices require the signatures of 50 registered voters in Chelmsford. Town meeting representatives require the signatures of 25 registered Chelmsford voters that live within the same precinct as the candidate. And the town clerk recommends gathering at least 20% more than the minimum number of signatures required to ensure that certification is successful. Electronic signatures are not allowed per Mass General Law. However, once nomination papers are pulled, candidates may make additional copies for distribution to others. The last day for nomination papers to be filed with the Board of Registrars is Tuesday, February 16th, 2021 at 5 p.m. And the last day to register to vote for the local election is Wednesday, March 17th at 5 p.m. You're muted, Ken.
Yep, thank you. Got it. Thank you for those, Virginia. With that, we're going to go into open session. Anybody who wishes to speak, if they could either raise their hand, put something in the chat box, we'll unmute you. We do ask that before you speak, just state your name and your place of residence, street address for the record. That would be helpful. I don't see anybody.
You want to move on to vacancies?
Yep, we'll move on to vacancies. If someone chimes in, we'll come back to it.
Okay. The following are the committee vacancies as of today. The ADA coordinator for one unexpired 1-year term ending June 30th of this year. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee has 2 vacancies. The CCA Advisory Committee has 2 vacancies, and the Center Village Master Plan Implementation Committee has 2. The Commission on Disabilities has 2 vacancies. The Community Action Program Committee has 1. The Council on Aging has 6 vacancies. The Cultural Council has 1, and the Energy Conservation Committee has 2 vacancies. The Holiday Decorating Committee has 1 vacancy, and the Parade Committee is welcoming all applicants for 1-year terms. The Permanent Building Committee has 1 vacancy. The Personnel Board has 1 vacancy. Public Celebrations has 5 vacancies. The Recycling Committee has 1 vacancy. Roberts Field Advisory Committee has 1 vacancy, and the Tree Committee has 2 vacancies. If you're interested in serving on a town board or committee, complete an application available on the town website. And for more information, you can contact the town manager's office at tmoffice@chelmsfordma.gov or 978-250-5202.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to our public hearing section. We have a National Grid poll petition for Parkerville Road. Is there anybody here that would like to speak on that?
You're asking anyone from National Grid?
Yeah. I don't recognize any of the names on the, oh, that's Bruce Harper. What do we do here if there's nobody who wants to speak on the poll?
You've received correspondence from Christina Bruce, our assistant, in terms of the application. I'm surprised there isn't somebody here from National Grid, but my understanding is the plan that's been submitted meets the approval of the DPW as well as the affected property owners. But the simple thing may be just continue the hearing till 2 weeks, and then just, I can't imagine there's any urgency for approval.
I think I saw an abutter on the call. Do we open the public hearing now or wait for National Grid?
I mean, you can open a public hearing and still continue it, and maybe hopefully we can get somebody from National Grid at the next meeting.
Well, I mean, why don't we open the public hearing? At least they're here.
Yeah.
I think
Right.
you did, right? I think you did open the public
Well,
hearing. before anybody was
I
there.
guess officially we did. So who, Virginia, who's the abutter?
Well, I see Maureen Baker. I think she's in a butter.
Okay. I don't know if she wants.
I was
to
just
speak.
looking at the abutter list and
Yeah, okay, Maureen's unmuted, if she does want to speak.
I did. Gary, I'm Maureen Baker. I live on 24 7th Lane, which is, this pole is gonna go right near our home. We reviewed the plan that was submitted, and the plan is very okay. The reason I really attended the meeting was to just make sure there were no changes to that plan. There was a
Okay.
plan.
So
Yes.
if we,
Poll
we,
petition. There's a poll petition on Parkerville Road plan.
Yes.
Okay, so that is very acceptable to us. And we just
Okay.
really wanted to make sure, Gary can't be here tonight. He has another meeting. Wanted to make sure that there were no changes made to that plan.
so if we continue this to our next meeting, your feedback is that as long as this plan doesn't change, you're acceptable with it.
Yes, I'm sure that if Gary's available, he will attend if you do continue it, just to make sure.
Okay.
In case anybody else attends. So you're
Okay,
looking.
Thank you.
That would be the
There's nobody
22nd?
from National Grid here, so we're probably gonna have to continue it.
To the 22nd?
yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
If there's no more public comment, I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing for the National Grid poll petition for Parkerville Road until February 22nd, 2021.
Second that motion.
We have a motion, a second, all in favor by roll call, Pat,
Aye.
Can I interrupt?
George,
That would be the 22nd, not the 21st. Sorry.
I think that's what I said.
Oh, I thought you
Yes.
said
Yeah,
the
the 22nd.
21st.
sorry,
Okay,
yeah, George,
Yes. Aye.
Virginia,
Aye.
and I vote aye, so we'll continue it to the next meeting. Next up, we have transfer of an all alcohol beverages license. Do we have anybody here? Looks license up.
Yes.
So my name is Inigo. I live in Acton, so I'm the applicant.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I have a few questions. On the application, it doesn't show Sunday hours. Do you not intend to be open on Sunday?
Actually, we do plan to open on Sunday. Actually, we plan to open every day, so it should be there. Which page you refer to is missing?
God, I think it says Sundays, comma, she wrote in Saturdays, 10 to 1.
Oh, okay.
AM.
Right.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah, we put them together. Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. I didn't see the.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. The other question I had though was about experience. I don't see any indication of any kind of experience in dealing with alcohol.
Yeah, I actually, I'm the friend of the current owner, Wen Tao, for 7-8 years. So I did like have had some experience with him for this restaurant. And also for myself, I already passed the liquor license. So I got the tips license already. So I do have my knowledge there.
Okay, yeah, because that was one thing I didn't see was the tip certification in the
Yeah,
packet.
the tips will be after the ABCC approval, and then the second, like after that, they will ask me for the tips license, which I already have.
Okay, all right. Thank
Yeah.
you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I just to clarify for me, so the list, it says required prior to issuance, which includes the tip license, but there's a bunch of other things that are not checked at this point. So if we vote in favor of this tonight, then the town manager's office will make sure those things are in place before the license is issued. Is that,
Yes,
sorry, Paul, you're
that's
muted.
the process.
That's okay.
But, and Virginia, just saying, they were notified that it is our policy to continue the public hearing.
I'm sorry, you're right, you're right.
So do we have a motion?
It is a public hearing.
Right,
Oh.
just,
We've got to open up to the public. We don't have anybody.
no one's here for the license.
We want to waive that. I know the public, we want to waive that, the 2 weeks. We have in the past. Is that a problem if we do, Pat?
Maybe that's a better question for the applicant if they're in a hurry to get this, the application submitted. I mean, it is going to be at the same spot. Looks like everything is pretty much going to be the same, so I would not be opposed to it, to waiving it.
Yeah, it's up to you guys. There is no really hurry, but it takes time for ABCC to issue the license, so it does take time.
Thoughts, anybody?
I
We don't have
a
any,
problem.
yeah, we don't have anybody waiting in the chat room, or nobody in the chat room saying anything, and we don't have anybody raising a hand or. What were you gonna say, George?
I don't have any problem waiving it. I mean, it's going to take some time, and then, you know, the ABC is going to go through it thoroughly, and everything has to be, submitted to the manager's office before we make the change. So, you know, I would make a motion, to waive it and vote on it tonight. Close the public hearing and vote on it tonight. That way, you know, you have a little bit of time tonight, so we can.
And can,
All right, I just
Can we
muted
dismiss
everybody.
those people, please?
Well, we're trying to figure out, Pete and I are going back and forth. We're trying to figure out who it is.
Thank you.
Um,
I don't have an objection to waiving it. It's at the same restaurant.
Okay.
Are
And we
you
don't-
okay
I
with
don't
that,
see any
Ken?
comments for, I'm fine with it. I don't see anybody chiming in the public either, so
Okay,
I'm okay.
so I'll make a motion to
Bonsoir.
waive. I'll make a motion to waive the continuance of the public hearing and approve the transfer of the all alcoholic beverages restaurant license for Sichuan Palace as presented. You're muted, George.
You're muted. Yeah. George, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Thank you.
There you-
Thank you. I would say, do we have to close the
Oh, I'll make a
public
mo-
hearing rather than?
You're right. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I jumped the gun. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor by roll call. Pat,
aye,
George,
Aye.
Virginia,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
I make a motion to approve the transfer of the all alcoholic beverages license for 7 Summer Street as presented.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, Pat,
aye,
George,
aye.
Virginia,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Good luck.
Good luck.
All right, so now we have a change of manager. position for Custori Restaurant.
Oh,
And do we have anybody here from Custori?
yes.
Yeah.
I'm here.
How are you?
Mansfield,
Yeah,
I'm
we
the
can hear you.
owner.
Okay. So we're doing a change of your liquor license?
A change of manager.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Is the fellow, person that's gonna be taking over, is he or she currently working in
Yes.
the
They've
establishment?
they've been working here for 15 years.
I guess that's plenty of experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any other
It looks like
questions, Ken.
No, let me just, it looks like all those tips and everything are in order, so.
I will make a motion to approve the change of manager on the all alcoholic beverages license for 100 Tingsboro Road as presented.
Second,
We have a motion, a second, all in favor, a roll call, Pat,
Aye.
George,
aye.
Virginia,
Aye.
and I will vote aye. Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is the revised proclamation condemning and standing against racism, discrimination, and hatred. I thought maybe to start this, I know we have some people from the DREC committee on. Sharice is here. She could just turn on her camera. I didn't see
Phil's here.
Phil. Oh, Phil's here. All right, so Phil, welcome. Sharice, welcome. Do we want to start off by reading the new proclamation? How would you like to proceed?
Yeah, usually we read it after we sign it, but we're not physically together to sign it. So do we just want to confirm? Or would you like me to read it? I think it looks great.
I think they did a wonderful job.
I agree. I was very glad that they took the time to, hear our concerns and were willing to make edits to it to make it more comfortable for all of us. So I'm definitely ready to approve it, to sign it.
You too, George?
Yeah, absolutely. Your call. I'm happy with it.
Would you like me to read it then, Ken?
Please.
This is the Town of Chelmsford proclamation condemning and standing against racism, discrimination, and hatred. Whereas people across our country and within our own community are harming others by their words and acts of racism, discrimination, and hatred, whether intentional or unintentional, such words and acts are unjust. And whereas Martin Luther King Jr. wrote, quote, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends," end quote. And it is only right and moral that we identify, condemn, and stand against all forms of racism, discrimination, and hatred. And whereas it is important that we recognize and own our biases, that we are willing to learn from others and educate ourselves, that we listen, that we strive to do better, and that we take genuine action to stand against racism, discrimination, and hatred. And whereas there are many forms of privilege that exist simply because of race, heritage, background, and experiences, and whereas diversity strengthens us socially, politically, culturally, and economically, and whereas having genuine intent and action to stand against racism, discrimination, and hatred is critical to working towards equity and for all residents to be treated with dignity, respect, compassion, and justice. Now, therefore, we, the Chelmsford Select Board, proclaim that we are committed to condemn and stand against racism, discrimination, and hatred, recognizing that by doing so is a critical first step in fostering a more diverse and inclusive community. better understand and acknowledge those privileges that some enjoy while others do not, listen and learn to do better, and help our community to embrace, support, and lift up people who are discriminated against and marginalized, and promote and embrace diversity, equity, and inclusiveness for everyone in our community and beyond. Further, the Chelmsford Select Board encourages residents, local businesses, educators, community and faith-based organizations, town employees, town boards, and town committees to condemn and stand against racism, discrimination, and hatred, to celebrate diversity, and to support, foster, and encourage a community spirit that reflects trust and respect for all. Signed this 8th day of February 2021 by the Select Board and sealed with the town clerk signature.
I know at our last meeting, they had indicated that they did want us to take a public vote affirming this proclamation also. So I'm, if you wanted to make a motion to that effect. I know we
Sure,
usually-
I'll make, since we're not there physically to sign, I'll make a motion that we affirm this proclamation
Second
and
that.
fix our signatures. Go
I'm
ahead, George.
sorry. Second,
We have a motion and a second. All in favor by roll call. Pat?
Aye.
George?
aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I vote aye. And I noticed Sharice turned her camera on. Do you want to talk, Sharice? No?
I will say thank you very much.
If you were here, we'd present it to you, give you the physical
Oh,
document. So thank you. Well
That's nice.
done.
I appreciate it. Phil is on. There he is. There's the man who's in charge. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, thank you for the hard work you guys did on this, and thanks for working with us. And I really appreciate this step forward.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for your continued support.
Yes.
Well, good luck, and we will. Is there any other items? Well, we're going to get a presentation tonight, right? Or is that?
No, not from this group.
No, not from this group.
That's all that's on the agenda,
So-
Ken.
All right, so we will check in with you folks, as you move along through this process, and as always, we're here for anything you need. So if anything comes up, by all means, feel free to reach out to us and ask for our help if you need it.
Will do. Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Have a good meeting. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. So my agenda just closed on me. So next up, what do we have on here?
Fred Brusso with the
Age friendly.
age-friendly Chelmsford, yes. And I
All
think
right,
Deb
Fred, you're on
Sirianni's-
then.
Fred, would you and Deb like me to share the presentation?
Please.
Just trying to get it.
Do you want me to do it?
No, it should be there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Town Manager, my name is Fred Brusso, and I'm here tonight with Debbie Sirianni, who's the director of the Senior Center here in Chelmsford. Debbie and I are the co-chairs of the Age-Friendly Chelmsford Core Team, and we're here this evening to present the Age-Friendly Chelmsford Action Plan to you for approval. And thank you for the opportunity to do so. Next chart, please. The briefing really has three topics. One, some background for the Age-Friendly Chelmsford Initiative, a timeline to show the preparation, the review, and coordination of the plan, and then our next steps going forward to sustain our initiative. Next chart, please. I'd like to begin the background with a demographic of which I'm sure you're all aware. The population of Chelmsford, like many other towns in the area, is aging. By last year, the population of those over 60 was estimated to be 30%. As people age, they want to age actively, and they want to age in an age-friendly environment where their quality of life and the dignity are ensured. And they want to be as independent as they can for as long as they can, where they have opportunities for health, participation, and security. Now, I want to stress here that Chelmsford is already an age-friendly town. You only have to look across the town departments to see the services that are offered for all residents of all ages, but we can do better. And that was the thought that inspired the start of the Age-Friendly Chelmsford Initiative in November of 2017. And that initiative had 3 initial objectives. One, we wanted to promote the concept of age friendliness for all ages, and we wanted to form a planning team. We also wanted to obtain membership in the AARP network of age-friendly communities. Next chart, please. Now, the membership process, as estimated by AARP, is a multi-year process, as you can see. There's no hard line for those timelines. Those are AARP estimates. But the first thing we wanted to do was submit an application package and then prepare an action plan where we address the 8 domains that we'll talk about, and then have goals and actions and dates, partners, accountability, needed resources, and measurability in our action plan. And then begin the implementation in year 2+, conduct an assessment, continue to improve, and submit a progress report after year 5. Although the core team decided that we'll probably submit interim progress reports to AARP. Next chart, please. Now the benefits of membership really can be summarized by access, opportunity, and recognition. We'd have access to mini grants and other funding, access to global network, aging, and civil society experts, and access to the latest news, best practices, events, challenges, and new initiatives. As far as opportunities, we can partner with other cities and towns that have already been through the process. In fact, that opportunity really helped us because it allowed us access to action plans that are online and talking to other people who have been involved in the age-friendly planning for their town. And the mentoring and peer review evaluation by other cities and towns who have already gone through the process. And by AARP's requirement, a public recognition of the town's commitment to work toward being more age-friendly. Next chart, please. We needed a spark to get the initiative going. And AARP in April of 2018 sent us Sandra Harris. And Sandra was an inspirational speaker. At the time, she was on the executive council for AARP Massachusetts, and she's now the state president. We had standing room only at the senior center. Downstairs, there were 2 conference rooms that with the partition open between them, and it was standing room only. After that spark, the initiative was there to form the age-friendly core team. And over the few months, there were 30+ members from the town, the community, and business. And there's a list of them in the action plan with their affiliations. We had a monthly meeting, and we had our first meeting on 30 May 2018. And at that time, the core team as a whole began to assess the age-friendly status of Chelmsford and the needs across the 8 domains as you see them. Next chart, please. The membership package was approved by AARP in June of 2019. We had to submit an application and a letter of commitment from the town that it would work toward being more age-friendly. In July 2019, Mike Festa, who is still the AARP Massachusetts State Director, came to Chelmsford to present the town the official certificate. And that's a photo of him there handing the certificate to Paul. At that time, the domain team leads and the members were identified. We began team meetings. The respective teams began to meet. They had listening sessions. They conducted interviews, and they began the process of identifying goals and actions. And the domain team leads began to submit their first drafts of their plans in December of 2019. And the core team at the time decided to include dementia-friendly needs and goals and actions to be included with being age-friendly also. Next chart, please. What I'd like to do now is step through the action plan timeline to show you the review, the coordination, and the collaboration that was conducted with the action plan. As I mentioned, from December 2019 to February 2020, the initial inputs began to arrive from the domain teams. And in February 2020, we had a huge opportunity. Thanks to Debbie, Chelmsford received a $40,000 age-friendly earmark state grant. And with that, we were able to work with UMass Boston Gerontology Institute, which is a highly respected organization here that has helped many cities and towns with their age planning process. And on the 23rd of March, 2020, we sent our final draft, the ones that the domain team leads had prepared. And we sent that to UMass Boston Gerontology Institute for enhancement. They really used our first draft as a basis for their deliverable. Well, we got thrown a curveball in April of 2020. When we signed the contract, it was our understanding at the time that the grant funds had to be spent by 30 June. But the products and the services that were acquired by the funds could be delivered after that. So when we contracted the contract, UMass Boston, for their work program, they were going to prepare a demographic profile. They were going to conduct a document review. They were going to conduct 2 town forums in April. They were going to conduct 3 focus groups in May and June. They were going to provide a findings report by 30 June. And they were going to submit a draft action plan by 31 July. And they were going to submit their final delivery action plan by 15 September. The curveball was in April, we learned that the rules changed. Both the money and the services had to be delivered by 30 June. So we had to streamline and delete several of the tasks that UMass Boston was going to do. And we also had to rearrange all the timelines. So now, after the curveball, UMass Boston was still going to conduct the demographic profile. They were going to conduct a document review by 30 April. By that, I meant we sent them numerous documentation of age-friendly surveys. We sent them the minutes of the listening sessions and the interviews that the domain team leads had. They were now going to submit a draft action plan by 15 June, and they were going to submit a final action plan by 30 June. So that was the new deadline. And on the 27th of June, 2020, we received the final deliverable from UMass Boston, where they had taken our final draft done by the domain team leads and enhanced it. And from July 2020 to September 2020, that UMB deliverable was reviewed in turn, first by the domain team leads, then by the Council on Aging Board, and then by the Master Plan Update Committee. In November 2020, after all the comments, and there weren't many, that I had received from those 3 review groups, a final draft was reviewed by the domain team leads. Now, throughout the age-friendly initiative, I've been keeping the AARP Massachusetts Age-Friendly Director informed and aware of the progress we were making. And when he heard in one of my status emails that we were about to send the action plan to the town manager for his submission to the select board, the age-friendly director asked if he could preview it to let me know how he felt about it. And on the 3rd of December, he sent me his comments, and they were extremely complimentary. So on the 1st of February, after all the reviews and all the comments were incorporated, I submitted what I refer to as the approval version to the town manager. And that's the version that was sent to you. May I have the next chart, please? Now, as I mentioned earlier, because of Debbie's actions, we received a $40,000 grant earmarked for age-friendly items from the state. And I'll turn the floor, as it were, over to Debbie to explain to you and discuss what we spent that $40,000 for. Debbie?
Hello, everybody. I just want to briefly highlight a few of the exciting things that have happened since we got our earmark grant. You can read all of them here, but I'll just highlight a few to let people know what does age-friendly look like in Chelmsford. So one of the things that we did was we realized with the fire department that there were seniors that sometimes were homebound and would have difficulty and need a check-in, and they would be forced, the fire department would be forced to break down their doors. So we worked with the fire department and we bought lock boxes, and lock boxes provide the fire department and the police department a key to gain access in an emergency into a homebound senior's home. So those are available through the fire department and the senior center. If you know anybody who could use one, we've already helped some people with them, but we have some more. Also, another exciting thing that happened, Jen Melanson over at Town Hall created raised bed gardens so that we're now getting fresh vegetables for our food pantry folks. And so those were partially funded through this. We got some Meals on Wheels support. We have through the library 10 age-friendly, senior-friendly tablet computers that are available to folks who don't have internet access at home. They have hotspots that go with them, and they're lendable through the library with support from the library staff. So if you know anybody who would like to try out a tablet and get some access and try maybe even getting on Zoom for some of these things that are happening, that we have that support through the library. And then one of the other programs, I'll just highlight one other. We have a Buried in Treasures support group that are now going through Zoom because of COVID-19. And that is assistance for people who are having difficulty with over collecting, under organizing, and it's really a supportive group to help work through some of the issues of needing to downsize and providing that support to seniors. So we're just looking forward to a whole lot more projects going forward. And this is just a little highlight of some of the things that have already happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. May I have the next chart, please? What I'd like to do now is talk about the next steps we feel are needed to sustain our initiative. And the first of which is why we're here tonight, why Debbie and I are here tonight, is to ask you to approve the Age-Friendly Chelmsford Action Plan. After your approval, I will send that action plan to the AARP Massachusetts Age-Friendly Director, who will forward it to an AARP national team for review and approval. And we also feel that now we need to move on to the implementation phase. And as I mentioned, maybe I didn't mention it, the age-friendly core team was really a self-formed team. There were 30 plus members who came together from all aspects of the community with one goal in mind. And that's to use their expertise, their knowledge, their experience, their dedication, and their enthusiasm to make Chelmsford even more age-friendly. And we were a self-formed team, but we feel with the implementation phase, it's time now to get a little bit more formal. So we're recommending that a age-friendly Chelmsford implementation committee be appointed and approved. And then we're recommending that let's develop a communication plan for engaging the community and the business partners in the age-friendly process here in Chelmsford, and perhaps create an age-friendly Chelmsford network, which would really be a almost a mirror image, I hope, of the age-friendly core team. And then establish a collaborative relationship between the implementation committee and that network. And then determine in a joint team fashion a strategy and undertake a strategy to implement the action plan and identify a process for measuring, evaluating, and reporting the progress. Empower people to execute the approved implementation of action items and continue to improve and revise the implementation plans as we need to. Next chart, please. Before I conclude, I'd just like to make a couple of acknowledgements. One, I'd like to acknowledge every member of that age-friendly Chelmsford core team. They came together, they met monthly, and the action plan is truly a product of their combined support. And I also would like to acknowledge the work of the domain team leads. For each of their respective domains, they assessed the current status of Chelmsford to meet age-friendly needs. They identified some unmet needs. They identified a vision, and they identified the goals and the actions needed to make that vision happen. And again, I want to acknowledge Debbie's efforts in providing that in getting that $40,000 earmark grant, because that provided us a huge opportunity to contract with UMass Boston that made our action plan an even better product than it was before we gave it to them. And you may have noticed the age-friendly Chelmsford logo on every chart. Credit for that goes to Lisa Maroney. That's all I have. Thank you for your attention and the opportunity to present the plan to you. Are there any questions?
I have a question. Is there anything in the 8 domains where you've identified the action plans where you either have significant obstacles to complete them or where you need support from us?
Virginia, thanks for the question. I feel that that's going to be a process, and those questions are going to be asked and answered during the implementation phase. And that's I view that as the first step in determining a strategy for how to accomplish what we said we're going to do in the action plan.
Okay. And so that would be the same with the potential partners. I was just kind of wondering if you've already brought, every action table has kind of the list of potential partners. So are they already involved with you in some cases, or do you envision that's going to be part of the process as the implementation team progresses?
I view that's going to be, again, part of the process, but let me point out here that there are some domain team leads that are already starting to implement some of their actions. And they've already identified their potential partners. They're no longer potential, they are partners. And they're actually accomplishing some of the goals.
Okay, that's great. I really liked the statistics you put in the report too from the American Community Survey. That was very enlightening. And the only other question I had is is there a financial need associated with this plan, or is that also something that you see as evolving as the priorities go? Grants come in or whatever, you'll figure out what you can do and to what extent? I
view that's the answer.
Okay.
As we get deeper into the implementation phase and the domain team leads, or that they won't be domain team leads, but they'll be the implementation leaders. They'll get into what funding is necessary. If you notice, the first action completion is something in like late 2021. So we've got some time to figure out how we want to attack a strategy to accomplish those goals and actions.
Okay, thank you. Those are the only questions I had.
And also this is more of an opportunity for funding as well. There are lots of opportunities for grants for age-friendly communities. One person who we did not thank is Paul Cohen, who's been at every single age-friendly meeting. And so I just want to acknowledge that and thank Paul for all the support.
And as Fred and Deb are aware, we've submitted a application to the Northern Middlesex Council of Government for a district local technical assistance grant. And that'll provide us with some assistance on implementation. At this point, I'm waiting for the contract to come back from NIMCOG. And then once I have that, I'll forward it to Deb and Fred, as well as to the select board. It was rather timely that quick opportunity came out. We were able to jump right on it, and we received word earlier today that we've been approved. We're just waiting for the paperwork.
Right.
And thank you for your help with that.
Well, I think this is an excellent plan, definitely comprehensive, and a lot of information and a lot of very ambitious too, which is really good. So I just have a question though about how you intend to create the implementation committee. Would you expect us to do it through the typical ways that we create our other committees, advertise it on the website, or do you have some? I guess that's the question.
Absolutely. We feel that it should go through the traditional process of forming a committee and having the committee approved, and the committee can meet and then figure out how it wants to move forward. I figure, or I view probably 7 to 9 members, but that's just I'm not sure what a traditional count is of the committees in Chelmsford, but I view perhaps 7 to 9 members.
Okay, and would you expect and any of those seats to be held by anybody in particular? For example, a member of the Board of Selectmen, a member of the Council on Aging, or anything like that?
I think yes, but I think that I would view that role as an advising role or a liaison role. We would certainly welcome an advisory role and a liaison role from a number of boards and committees in Chelmsford. In fact, the age-friendly core team, I forgot to mention, there were members from other boards and committees that were members of the core team. So we got their inputs during the planning process also.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So any other questions or comments for him? All right, George is back. Nope. All right. So Fred, what do you need us to do tonight?
Just approve the action plan, and when I get that approval, I'll send it to Antron Watson, who is the AARP Age-Friendly Director in Massachusetts.
So we have a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the age-friendly Chelmsford action plan as presented.
Second.
A motion, a second. All in favor by roll call. Pat?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Congratulations, Fred and Debbie.
Thank you so much for
Good
your
job.
support. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. So next up, we have the Warren Pole Farm presentation, Conservation Commission.
Yeah, Dave McLaughlin is going to kick this off with an introduction of Carl and Bischoff and present the report this evening. So Dave will address the board first.
Thank you very much. Good evening to the Board of Select Persons. As you all know, town acquired the Warren Pole Farm towards the end of last year, and we are in the process of creating a plan for building this farm out into a conservation reservation. We have approximately 1,100 plus acres of conservation land in Chelmsford, of which 771 acres represent about 13 different reservations. 2 of those are wildlife refuges, which are not open to the public formally, although they are informally open. The rest are established reservations, which many of you are aware of, the largest of which is the Cranberry Bog Reservation off of Elm Street. The second largest is Russell Milltown Forest. And Warren Pole will be 54 odd acres of acquired land. As you will see from Carl, it abuts the Wright Reservation and is fairly close to Robin Hill. The purpose tonight is to bring you up to date as to where we are and what actions and what steps we plan to take in the near future. Carl?
All right, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Dave. So what we're going to talk here about is the recommendations. If you want to go to the second page, we'll talk about the recommendations for the site. We incorporated input from residents as well as aligning this with our mission as a conservation commission. There's two major sections of this presentation. One is the input from the community and including some abutters specifically we targeted, as well as the second part will be on the recommendations. So if you go to the next page. So the input, we sent out a letter to approximately 100 abutters to the property, as well as posted it on the town website and made it available on social media. And I know Virginia read it at the select board meeting a number of times. So it got a fair amount of visibility. There was an ad hoc committee that I was a member of with Phil Stanway back in the August-September timeframe, and we had a couple of input sessions at the Sunny Meadow Farm, and we had lots of input that we collected from that as well. So we had in addition to that, we had other informal Facebook and conversations and emails that we got information as well. We ended up with 50 concerns and ideas and feedback from at least 25 people. We'll go through that in the next section. If we can move on to the next page. So the two main areas that we were looking for, that we got feedback and information for, were on the areas of access and usage. So access, it was the different ways that we would allow the public to get onto the site. And we're a bit restricted in that there are 6 different ways to access the site. So we had to come up with some ideas on how we would do that. And then the other part of the input and feedback was the usage of the site. So how people did and didn't want to see the site used. Next page. So the access. I'm going to ask, I'm not sure who's doing this, but if you can go to, I didn't put it here in the sequence, but on page 20 of this presentation, I think it would be good to just do right there. Yeah, so this just shows the 6 different frontages of the property and where we initially were hoping to access it. So the history of the property means that it has very little access direct or very little frontage access on any of our roads in Chelmsford. There's 6 different roads, 6 different points of access. It's very narrow at Boston Road, Hall Road, Parker Road, and Bartlett Street. Acton Road had a decent size amount of frontage, and Fay Street, but Fay Street is very wet. And as it turns out, you'll see Acton Road is also wet. So you can see that because of the layout of the site, these are the 6 possible ways that we could provide access to the site. I'm sorry, so you can go back to whatever page we were at. Right there. Thank you very much. So the summary of the access input. So this is just what people were telling us, that there was a lot of support for Acton Road. So for quite a while, we were pushing Acton Road to be the main site access. That's it would have the least number of issues. We had already set up some criteria for access input. We did find people wanting to have at least pedestrian and bicycle access on Boston Road. There were concerns with Parker Road, Bartlett Street, and also there were concerns with all of the signage in the general area. So signage on Bartlett Street, signage on Acton Road, signage on Boston Road. So there were a lot of people with feedback and input on the signs, not just on the site, but in the neighborhoods in that area. So for example, no parking or no entrance, you know, Bartlett Road, we all know, Bartlett Street, we all know has no entrance from Acton Road. So a lot of concern with all of those areas. Yeah, okay, so that's, let's move on to the next page. So the summary of the usage input. So this is the areas that we were hearing from people in terms of passive recreation, agriculture, and some general miscellaneous other areas. So the next page. For passive recreation, lots of pretty unanimous, everybody wants to see walking trails, bicycling, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, the normal reservation type activities. There were people who were suggesting that we had picnic tables, a perennial garden, a sculpture park, an off-leash dog park. We also had suggestions to engage conservation planning experts to develop a long-term plan. And we also had input where there were suggestions for educational opportunities, such as, you know, in the areas of history, nature, agriculture, as this has been a farm for 300 years. So these were the general areas that we had input for the usage. Agriculture, everyone agrees that due to the nature of the site, that keeping the field, the open space, the vista viewable, that haying the field was necessary. It has been hayed for many, many, many years. Not very much in the last couple of years, but it is still being hayed, and there's a lot of agreement that we need to continue that. There were people who were looking for some types of artisan and commercial farming on the site. A lot of this goes back to the September timeframe, and there were people looking for that. There were also people opposed and concerned with that. We also had support and opposed and concerned with things like beekeeping and orchards, having an orchard developed. We've also heard from people they would like to see chicken coops there. We heard specifically from people we don't want chicken coops there. And then we heard from people looking for things like a community garden, and I have to admit permaculture, which I'm still learning about. So these were the general areas of input for both access and usage. So now if we can go to the next page. Yeah, this was the miscellaneous. We definitely had lots of input for making sure everything was ADA compliant. And as I mentioned earlier, the interpretation education opportunities, as including the farm history and the Minuteman muster. Apparently there was a Minuteman muster there at the time of the revolution. So some kinds of education things that we can put in there would be helpful. We also had some input on making sure that we try to keep the trees, plant more trees, and protect the water. So climate impact on the site. Next page. So now we'll go into the second section, which is the recommendations. So we took all that input, rolled that into what our mission with our, the conservation reservation mission. So the next page, the site access. This was our initial push. We really found not many disagreeable ways to or reasons to use Acton Road. However, if we go to the next page, it was not viable. The DPW group did some analysis and really tried to make this work, but it is very wet. We knew that going in. We thought being a not impervious road, driveway and parking would be to our advantage here. It was not enough. There's still too much wetland there. Very disappointing because that meant we had to go to Plan B. So right now, no, please stay there. Thank you. Plan B is we would create multiple access points to spread the impact of access. First would be, we would use the Boston Road, what they call the farm lane driveway, which is not the driveway of the Poles house, Mr. and Mrs. Poles house, but the driveway between their house and the Brown house. This would be a main site access. We would put parking in behind there, which is in the area which we call the barnyard. Somewhere in the vicinity of 10 to 20 vehicles in that area. It's actually plenty of space there for vehicle parking. So that would be one parking area. The second area that we would look at for access would be expanding the right reservation parking area, which would then mean we would have to create a path from the parking lot in Wright and across Parker Road and create a path into the into the Warren Reservation, Warren Farm. That trail does not exist right now. It is between two houses. It would only be a walking trail. There'd be no motor vehicle or car access there. There would be a fair amount of work to connect that into the Warren site. Expanding the Wright Reservation parking lot would be moving the parking further into the Wright Reservation. It's just pushing what's there now into the reservation a little bit further. It's a small lot as it is now. I'd say you can get 4 to 6 cars in there at the most. Would like to get on the order of 15 cars in there, 10 to 15 cars in there. And then finally, we believe it would be reasonable to allow access, a simple walk-in trail on the intersection of Bartlett Road and Acton Road, where the pumping station is. You can walk right behind there, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal to cut down a few trees and create a walking trail so that people from the neighborhood in the Bartlett Street neighborhood could easily walk in and get in there. That right now there are no parking signs on that road. We wouldn't create a parking area. If it becomes an issue with people parking on that road, we would probably have to address that down the road. But right now we would make that kind of a discrete entryway. Next. So the site usage. The recommendation is that we really focus this site on passive recreation. As I said earlier, it would be very consistent with our other reservations. The agriculture part, we would include haying of the fields. We are in discussion with a local farmer to have the fields hayed on an ongoing basis. We would possibly entertain the idea of, I guess we call it non-tilling agriculture, things like beekeeping, maple sugaring, and orchards with either minimal or no pesticides. But we would not be looking at anything like crop farming, livestock, or a community garden, where we already have at least 2 in town. Next. We would look at engaging experts for long-term site master plan, funding dependent. We are working on the conservation restriction baseline assessment. That's going okay with we're working with the Chelmsford Land Trust, Land Conservation Trust. So we could use that to help us with longer term planning. We do need to define the specific Chelmsford Water District request to have a well on that, the ability to have a well down the road. Down the road could be 50 years, maybe never, especially since they bought the Misty Meadow property. But if that is part of the conservation restriction, we need to get that narrowed down with the location. And then finally work with the Commission on Disabilities to make sure that we get any other input besides just being ADA compliant, but getting any other input to make the site enjoyable by others in town or anyone with any kind of disabilities. Next page, please. We would have a plan working with DPW for signage at all access points and neighboring roads. We would work to develop trails. There are, the site being 300 years of farming, there's plenty of trails on the site now, but we would also need to supplement that with a few small trails to create a loop so that it's, if you get to see the site, you realize that if there's one place it would be nice to have a loop. As well as we would have to install all the signage and markings for the trails, create a trail map, kind of the normal conservation reservation activity. We are looking at and willing to work with anyone in town to do history of the site. I've had conversations with Becky Warren. She's very happy to help here, the Historical Society. Any other groups that want to use the site as we develop it for nature, farming, education, anything like that. So we aren't necessarily signing up to do that as part of the Conservation Commission, but we're certainly willing to support any other groups that want to do those types of activities on the site. And then next steps. So this was an update presentation here. Our first priorities are getting the parking, access and parking going, and then also getting the conservation restriction nailed down. The main driver for both of those, I think, is the survey of the land, which is ongoing, getting that baselined. And that's where we're at. So happy to take questions, comments, feedback.
This is Dave McLaughlin. Let me just add one point. We have about a $55,000 capital budget for this site, of which 32 to 33,000 is the parking lots. The parking lot for Boston Road at this point is estimated to be about $10,000. And the parking lot addition at Wright Reservation is estimated to be about $12,000. We would look to there is a trust fund for the Wright Reservation for capital improvements on the Wright Reservation itself. That trust fund has approximately $50,000 in it now, and we would look to the trust fund to take some money to build the expanded parking lot on Wright Reservation. The balance of the budget at this point, which is 55 minus 13 or whatever, 42, 43, $45,000, we are preparing a request of CPC for that amount of money. There would be additional funds after that, perhaps in year 2 and year 3, which have not been identified yet. But that would mean that all of our capital costs at this point in time would be funded away from the general tax lien or the general warrant article. We're also proposing a $5,000 a year operating budget for Warren Pole Farm. We do not have any operating budgets for any of our reservations. But because of the size of this one, we think an operating budget in a small amount of $5,000 is probably appropriate. So that's where we are. And as Carl said, are there any questions that either of us can answer? Ken, it's all yours.
I don't have any, Dave. I don't. Yep.
So Paul, what you expect to go to town meeting is the parking lot? If I'm looking at the list of articles.
Yes, we have the request for the parking, and the Community Preservation Committee should be meeting later this month. I think probably a week from Wednesday is usually the typical date, the third Wednesday, to review the plans and funding requests for the parking areas. And then I do have in the operating budget the $5,000 for the maintenance of the the lands.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Great job, thanks. All right, before we jump to the next topic, as it turns out, the National Grid poll person has been, I guess, here and waiting. He came in late. Do we want him to make him come back, or do we want to?
We continued the hearing, so he has to come back anyway.
Well,
And
I also see that Maureen Baker rejoined, I thought.
She just left.
She just left.
so I think we should just continue with continuing it to our next meeting. I mean,
Okay.
unfortunate that he had to stay here for that long, but
Should we? All right. He just. Can I unmute him and just tell him? Just
Mhm.
get a confirmation out of him.
Hello, good evening, Board of Selectmen. My apologies for being late and missing out on my opportunity, but
Yeah, we had to continue it for 2 weeks because there was no one here. So at this point, it's been continued, and we really can't. We instructed the public it would be, and there was a butter who said she'd come back, so we'll have to take it up in 2 weeks.
okay, no, that's perfectly fine. Thank you. I appreciate it, letting me know. And it will probably be myself again in 2 weeks. So hope to see everybody
Okay.
then.
All right, be safe. Thank you.
Likewise, thank you so much. Have a great evening.
You too. I feel bad he waited. All right, so that will bring us to, is it vision and values next up?
Mm-hmm.
It's a vision value implementation. Virginia, who's running through this?
So, did I unmute? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just to refresh, this was the vision and values that were established, and these were the recommendations from the committee. And I thought there might be some value in just stepping through these recommendations to make sure that we're aligned on how like this one is kind of vague. So how do we want to implement those? We did the committee presents to the town meeting. Paul, I saw in your goals presentation that it's been posted in the municipal buildings.
Yes, yes, and I distributed it back in July to all the departments, and then we had it displayed on the town's website and requested that the statement be published in the buildings. It is, I see the town offices one most frequently, but I understand it's in the other buildings as well.
I just have a discussion point for you and the board relative to the website. So the vision and value, where it's posted on the website is under the Board of Selectmen. It's the Board of Selectmen's vision and values, but it was meant to be the vision and values for the town. And then each individual website seems to post their mission statement, and we have a mission statement in our policy book. And I thought when we did this, it was the committee had envisioned more like, remember when you used to go to the website and there was that little blurb about Chelmsford or recreational spaces and things like that? I thought what was envisioned was that the vision and values for the town would be on the front of the website, but I wanted to bring that up with the board and see how you felt about that. Where our mission statement would be on on the Board of Selectmen website, but these are the vision and values for the town, not for the board.
That was my understanding also. And if it went out to the different departments, I would assume that was Paul's understanding too.
So do you want it on the homepage, or where do you want
Well,
it?
I mean, I'm not a website designer, but I mean, is there a way to put a statement on the homepage?
Okay, okay,
These are our town's vision and values.
okay, yes,
And then I would think what would go on the board's page would be their mission statement, just like the other boards and committees who have mission statements, put them there.
okay.
And so really the only one left to talk about is the town boards, committees, and municipal departments. And Paul, thank you for sending that out. I didn't know that you had done that. So in my mind, the question is, do we leave it at that, or is there anything more that we want to do? I mean, we're not going to get involved in everybody's goal setting to make sure there's alignment, but I think it's more keeping the awareness. So, for example, one thing that the committee had kicked around when we were doing this was, do we have town employees and or board and committee members just sign an acknowledgement form? Or is that, is that part of your onboarding when you join a committee or a board? So I wanted to just bring that up before we say this is done. Like, would we want Paul Haverty to just draft a short acknowledgement that people could even just electronically sign off on? So you're consciously doing something to acknowledge it.
I would think you'd want to have this implemented for the committees, sort of to sign off on, so that you have something in writing from the committee members understanding, what the visions and values of the town are and how we operate, or at least the.
Mm-hmm.
I know when somebody gets sworn in for a committee, they get a packet from the town clerk. It could be included in that packet. I don't think it needs to be an annual renewal like the ethics, but every time you get reappointed to a committee, you would see it again.
And I think it would be good to just have a physical acknowledgement, even if it's a click on a website, so that we have a record that people who have joined the committees have acknowledged that, in case there is some gross misstep away from the vision and values. And also, just more importantly, just to help instill it a little bit more in that level of consciousness that you actually have to click and sign that you've read it. I just wanted to bring that forward because I believe that was what the committee had talked about just in some of our discussions when we were talking about how do you help keep this in front of people who are serving the town.
So right now, when someone's added, do they get a packet electronically as opposed to in paper? And if so, I don't understand why you.
Go ahead.
And I was just going to say, so I don't understand, and then it shouldn't be an issue to have them digitally sign and return, with other things. If it's in paper, it could just be one of the documents that I know we all have to go to town hall and sign things, and drop them off when we're put on new committees and on an annual basis. And I know Pat doesn't want to do it annually, which is fine, but it could be.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to. I don't think it needs to be annually. I think it's when you renew or when you're put on a committee. If we wanted to try to catch up with existing committees and boards, we could. But the packet that we get, when I served on a committee, it was an oral oath, right? I don't even have a copy of what I promised to do. And then there were some other orientation things about town boards and committees and doing training for open meeting law and things like that. But this, I think, could be very simple to just put on. There's all kinds of, we've already implemented electronic signatures on our town website for other things. So I think it could be a very simple thing to just go on and click an acknowledgement. And then it's in the record, and somebody consciously did something and didn't just file the packet in the trash can.
How would they know to do that?
It would have to be part of what they do when they onboard, is part of whatever the town clerk gives them, I think.
So it would just be a little note in there that they had to log on and do this?
Yeah, or an email like we get that says, hey, it's time for you to go do your annual or your every 2 or 3 year conflict of interest training. It would just be some kind of notice please go acknowledge and sign, click on the link. I don't think it has to be onerous.
That's the
Well,
thing. I think
or what about-
it can't be onerous, and it has to be easy.
But it had, exactly, but I think it would be good to have something, because right now we don't, so.
Would it be something, Virginia, they could sign when they also get sworn in, when we go back to in person?
They could. I think it's whatever is easiest to implement. If it's an electronic acknowledgement, we could even just ask our current board and committee members to just go in and click it. But, or just start with new or renewing terms.
I mean, I don't want to put too much burden on to have, the clerk's office to have to
Well,
go
and
back through every committee, but
I'm going back to Ken. I mean, we have had in the past issues, and there's nothing we could do.
right. No, that's true too.
I mean, as a next step, we could just ask Paul Haverty to draft something and see what it looks like and how we feel about it. But
I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think
maybe in the meantime, we can all give some thoughts to how we would distribute it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, how we would get people to acknowledge it and be aware of it, like you said.
right, it's just to help increase awareness and have something on record in case you need it down road. So, okay.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else?
So we'll ask Paul Haverty to do that then.
Do you want me to ask him, or do you want Paul? Who's going to ask him? Paul or you, or? I just don't want
I can.
I don't know what your
No,
protocol is.
I can do it.
Okay.
Paul's not volunteering, so.
Did you want to offer something, Paul?
No.
Or say something?
No, I mean,
if you don't think we're on the.
No, if there's no one misunderstanding, then like I said, have the chair or you, Virginia, contact Paul directly.
Okay.
Then that way there's nothing lost in translation.
That's all I had.
All right, I'm making a note, Virginia, I'll take care of that.
Okay,
all right.
Thanks, Ken.
We'll move along to Paul, your presentations.
Yeah, thank you. I just have one item for bid award this evening. It has to do with the HVAC air system rebalancing bid, and I'm joined by Gary Persichetti. Last week, I think it was last Tuesday evening, there was an update provided to the school committee regarding the update on the HVAC examination evaluation and work to date. And I provided a copy of the report that was submitted that evening. As was explained at that time and where we are this evening, the bids went out for the air balancing component, and we did receive a bid from a company that the town had experience with in the past. We were addressing this just over 3 years ago back in the schools. And so Gary's here this evening, and we're formally seeking the bid award for the air balancing to Air Solutions and Balancing in the amount of $236,450. Anything more to add to that, Gary, in terms of where we're at this point?
No, we're actually in really good shape. As far as it goes, just a quick update. Every building is at 100% except for the McCarthy. McCarthy is the one that we're still working on. And then the other one that has some work to be done is just the rooftops of the high school. All the rest of the buildings have been fully evaluated. Recommendations have been made. We're in the process of reviewing all of those. Any instance for easy repairs have been done while they were there before we move on. And we're working now on getting a financial list of what's needed. And the air balancing is the part that's gonna make sure that the air exchanges are there and they're proper. It's gonna make sure we're bringing in the right amount of outside air. And just so you are aware, Paul had mentioned in 2018, when we did this back with the teachers union, Air Solutions rebalancing So we are familiar with them. They are familiar with our building.
And then in terms of the financial component of this, a couple avenues. One is I did speak to Representative Trahan's office this afternoon. In the upcoming federal stimulus package, there is expected to be money provided to states and municipal governments for COVID response, including the whole issue of air quality in schools and reopening of schools. Also, Dr. Lang has indicated that he believes that there's some funding available in the funding sources that he has to cover these costs. And again, we're also looking for the final assessment report to get the magnitude of in terms of any capital items that may go in terms of air handling units such as the high school and so forth. So we're on schedule. The goal is to get this work done during school vacation week and shortly thereafter. And again, the great outcome of this is not only in the COVID environment, but going forward, we will have healthy schools with appropriate balancing and air exchange and so forth, which really is very fortunate for our community and for the students and educators who are in the buildings.
Okay. So do we have a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the HVAC air system rebalance bid to Air Solutions, to approve the award to Air Solutions and Balancing as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, Pat?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. I've got 4 items under my report this evening. The first one is under the board's policies and procedures. The town manager is supposed to provide a quarterly update on goals, and I have a report. I don't know if Virginia, if somebody could pull that up, and I'll just try to walk through it and discuss it and also get some feedback, on this report. Oops, there we go. If we go to the first slide of text, the first goal that was established was addressing the town's sewer capacity, including the implications for current sewer connection moratorium and short, medium, and long-term options and recommendations and short-term viable solutions. As the board's aware, back at the fall town meeting, we obtained approval to fund a study to determine the options to increase the capacity of the sewer system. We contracted with Weston and Sampson engineers to develop alternatives to address the town's wastewater capacity limitations. We've communicated with other communities served by the Lowell Regional Wastewater Facility. We're monitoring sewer flow. And again, Steve Youngley gave an update to you at your last meeting. And again, some things to note there is that, we did not exceed our capacity in the year 2020, calendar year 2020, nor in calendar year 2019. So it appears that our high point at this point was 2018. We've also received, I'll touch upon it later here, a DLTA grant funding to work with Northern Middlesex Council of Government to get some assistance on the demand side. I mean, we've been talking a lot about capacity and how it could flow, but we're going to work with NIMCOG as part of the latest grant funding opportunity to get to just get more additional information in terms of what is the demand that we need on the user side, meaning 129 corridor and elsewhere, so that, again, just to keep current and see what we have in terms of the capacity issues going forward. So that's sort of where we are at this point. And I know in the months ahead, we'll be getting more formalized reports from our engineers in terms of the data analysis and the issues regarding the specific plant in Lowell, as well as potential options. So I think we're off to a good start with this goal.
Paul, I think you just touched on the question I had. So this study is going to take several more months.
Oh yeah.
But as we get those updates and things, because there's more detail available, can we get that in writing? So
oh yeah.
I have a hard time absorbing when somebody's just verbally throwing stuff at me.
No, we want
my own learning style.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we will receive a written reports from Weston and Sampson in terms of, here's data on flows, here's data on capacity and so forth. It's just, like you said, just gathering and compiling that data. And again, we're still waiting from the regional basis of feedback from the city, from their discussions with DEP and EPA regarding the capacity at that plant. So, yes,
Okay.
definitely, we will get formalized reports going forward, not just a verbal update at a meeting. Definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Moving on, related to that was the sort of the examination of the root cause of the lessons learned in the sewer capacity situation, and sort of, what happened, how did we get here, and how do we go forward? And again, with the assistance, particularly of Steve Yonley at DPW, who's been involved with this project from the sewering of the town for many, many years, we sort of culled materials together, going back to the 1984 wastewater facilities plan when sewerage in Chelmsford started. And then really moving on to 97 when the engineers at the time gave a facilities plan update. At that time, there was authorization to sewer basically 2/3 of the town. And then there was capacity to do the remainder of the town. And that's when they had embarked on the phase 10-year plan to sewer the entire town. And at that time, there was an estimate of 250,000 gallons of excess capacity to serve future development in the town. And even back then, they recommended that basically the planning board and sewer commission continually monitor the flows to keep an eye on things. If you then move on to the next page, you then advance 5 years later to 2002, and things had changed considerably. The sewer commission implemented a 2-year sewer moratorium because of the development that occurred at the start of the decade/millennium. They determined that they did not have sufficient capacity to meet the current commitments in providing service to the entire town. And at that time, they went and submitted a special legislation, obtained a special act of the legislature to establish what was known as a sewer capacity fund, to collect funds and segregate those funds to be used to secure additional capacity. And then in April of 2004, upon, as you're at the exit of the moratorium, they established a sewer capacity impact fee. You go ahead a couple of years later in 2007, they're reaching out to the city of Lowell, the sewer commission, to seek additional capacity by re-rating the capacity of the plant, an effort that's still underway today. Here we are, 13 plus years later, and also looking at other ways to provide capacity by infiltration, inflow, and water conservation. Again, step forward another few years to 2010, the Weston and Sampson engineers comes out with another report that basically at that point there's 1,100 residential properties not connected. And at that time, they estimate that the additional flow was slightly higher than the available capacity. Moving on to the next slide, in that report, again, it's the encouragement of measures to encourage conservation, infiltration, water sewer banks, the same education component. And then nothing happens during the remainder of the last decade. And on this next slide, you'll see why. It's because there really wasn't a lot of development going on until basically in October, I provided you with the memorandum saying that we're at our capacity in fiscal 19 or really calendar 18 as well. And again, in that report, again, this is the report we saw last summer, they recommend the moratorium and then, pursue negotiations to acquire additional capacity. We had that joint meeting with the planning board and board of health. We enacted the sewer moratorium in October of 2020. And then the next slide sort of comes back to, as I said, it was a period of most of the last decade where there was very little development in the town. Over an 8-year period, there's only 16 additional apartment units, 69 condos, and 42 single-family homes over an 8. So you're talking 5 homes per year. Not a lot going on, even in percentage-wise. And then basically you hit this boom that happens in the last 3 fiscal years, and really the the 2 fiscal years prior to the current one, where all of a sudden 476 additional apartment units get permitted, which basically is like a 50% increase in apartment units beyond 1,000 that was in existence at the time. 66 additional condo units come on in that 3 fiscal year period, which basically equals what had happened in the prior 8 years. And then you get 23 single family homes, which is basically half the amount that had been in the prior 8 years, all in a narrow 3-year window. So that brings you to sort of the, the next slide, which sort of says, it's sort of in summary, this issue of sewer capacity limitations has been around for a generation. And really, aside from the enactment of the moratorium back in 2002, which provided the funding mechanism, there really hasn't been any additional capacity secured. And then we're sort of hit with this rapid change in housing development preferences, the multifamily apartment buildings in the last couple of fiscal years that sort of puts us into this moratorium that we're in today. And I think going forward, the flow and capacity needs need to be continued to be at the forefront. And really, annual reports have got to be provided to the planning board, select board, and board of health. And obviously, completing the effort that's underway right now as we look towards the future. And as I said earlier, we've got the Weston and Sampson study that's underway. And again, we expect over the next 6 months, we'll really get into the nuts and bolts of that. And then again, we're now engaging NIMCOG to help us on the other side to say, well, what's the demand? And helping us move forward. So that's sort of the summary of where we are in the initial quarter or so since the goal was adopted by the board.
So was the town not, for the last 20 years or whatever, were we not doing this annual look and coordination between those 3 boards?
Not that I can see. I mean, even if you go back to the last master plan back a decade ago, it's really not prominent. There's sort of this notion of, oh, well, we've got the capacity impact fee, and so when the time comes, we'll address the problem. And I think what basically happened is you're in this period of slow growth, not much happening, and then you get this burst, and which basically brought the time coming real quickly. So that's sort of, so there really wasn't, it wasn't reporting. I mean, I don't recall reporting either to this board. I don't recall discussions at the planning board, the Board of Health. I mean, or even with the zoning changes and development aspects of, there really wasn't a discussion about capacity. And so again, no, there really wasn't and hasn't been that type of ongoing dialogue, even in the height of what you saw where a rapid series of projects going before the planning board, from Turnpike Road to Carlisle Street to Littleton Road and so forth. It's not at the discussion stage.
Do you see anything in the way that we implement the processes that would need to change? Or do you think these annual looks are enough?
I think at this point, annual is enough until we get to a phase and really what comes out of the study and where we're going from at this point going forward. It's because we don't know what the solution is. I mean, if it's a question of purchasing capacity or, land, banking or remediation, so I think at this point, the best I can say is that at a minimum, it has to be an annual reporting. And it may be semi-annual in terms of you look at by fiscal year and you look at it by calendar year. There's 2 different data points that may be how it's addressed going forward, but it is clearly at the forefront. And I think you're also seeing now in this issue of climate and everything else, you're seeing even water now being more at the forefront of discussions in terms of, water table, water supply and so forth. So I think we're going to see this, going forward.
when this first came up, as far as root cause, lessons learned, my thought was that this wasn't going to be solely about sewer capacity, but more about process that's being done. Because when you think of the, why we as residents have a town hall and that we rely on, is for, the different services and utilities. And I'm thinking, is there a process? Sewer, we get, we got caught. Is there something similar? Is there a process you can put in place where annually, and again, I'm just throwing it out there, I'm not really sure how you would do it, but where you would, do an analysis of our national grid, gas, electric, sewer, water, phone lines, like just sort of some type of a SWOT analysis for each utility, because those are the basic services I think residents are relying on from the town to get, that we have a responsibility to make sure that they can get them, and and that we don't get a surprise like this again.
Yeah, we generally have received annual reports from the water district, Chelmsford Water District, on sort of their efforts,
The water capacity.
water capacity, issues of conservation. I have reached out, and about a few months ago, I think 3 or 4 months ago, I reached out to National Grid and asked that they come in and provide us with an infrastructure report. They said they will do that. The problem is they're in transition now, because of retirement of David Gendel, and then our reps moving around. But they promised me that, and so I'm hoping to have in the spring to give you a report from National Grid, electric and gas, and particularly because of what's going on with the environmental legislation that's now back in the legislature. The governor sent his comments back to the legislature on Saturday from the bill that was revised that ended at the end of the last session, which is a rather extraordinary response from the legislature to take up a bill in the first month of the new session. So within basically about a 2 to 4 week period, there will be a new energy bill, an environment bill affecting the Commonwealth, as well as the cities and towns and residents in the community. And that's going to have an impact in terms of the whole issue of, going carbon neutral by 2045 and the interim steps and so forth. And one of the concerns we need to discuss with National Grid is, if the direction is to go towards electricity in terms of electric vehicles, eliminating fossil fuels such as oil, heat, natural gas, and so forth, it's going to create an additional reliance on the electricity grid, as well as the discussions you're seeing, on conversion to all electric vehicles by 2035 and so forth. So yes, I think we're in a different phase now, and a different awareness and these issues going forward. So yeah, I think that this will be enhanced going forward in terms of the infrastructure. Again, water, wastewater, stormwater, energy and electricity. And again, we'll also see what comes out of this legislation, but there could also be another local stretch code in terms of energy compliance and construction at the local level. So I think the answer is, Ken, yeah, we're going to see this in a way that probably wasn't envisioned 5 or 10 years ago, but is obviously cutting edge. And I think you also see a commitment now at the federal level, and this whole issue of wind power that was all but dormant, not too long ago, is now on a fast track in Massachusetts, and as well as the hydropower coming in from Canada through Maine. So yes, I think that these issues are going to be at the forefront. And also, when I did speak to Emily Byrne at Representative Trahan's office today, I did discuss the importance of infrastructure, including these issues. And I think they're aware of it, and they're working on an infrastructure bill at the federal level that may be part of stimulus, and how that can assist communities like Chelmsford going forward.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on to the next goal would be developing a plan for the use of the Warren Pole Farm. Again, we just had that earlier in this meeting this evening, but again, over the last several months since the acquisition was completed, DPW in particular has assisting the commission in developing a plan for the use of the property, notably the parking areas that were noted this evening, but also we're insuring the property. DPW is assisting with the electricity supply to the barn that used to have electric service from the Pole residents, but obviously that had to change. So we had to do some installation and trenching and so forth. And again, just getting everything up to, implementation stage. And again, going forward, the focus will be on initially the parking areas, as you heard earlier this evening, property maintenance, and the enactment of the conservation restriction. Moving on to the next goal, which was the financial status. Again, Darlene and I have provided timely updates to the board, and I think the most notable ones on this were the summits that we had back in September prior to the fall town meeting with the school committee and finance committee coming together, and then the one that happened basically a month ago with the same boards in terms of how we coordinate and develop a plan going forward. So I think we're on top of it, and amazingly, and if you've been following this even recent, I mean, so far things have held together at the state level and even at the local level. As you can see the reports from Darlene, the financial fallout hasn't occurred yet. They're still concerned that it will happen in the remaining months of this fiscal year. And again, we are expecting to see stimulus assistance from the federal government probably in the March timeframe that legislation will get resolved. But again, we're staying on top of this and again, just trying to do the best we can during this extraordinary pandemic period right now. Related to that was the next goal, which was to establish a budget recommendation regarding Proposition 2.5. And again, as noted at that January 11th meeting with the finance committee and school committee, this board voted to direct me to utilize the full levy capacity in the development of the upcoming operating budget. And at that time, and I continue to have, which is why I keep bringing it back up, I think the issue of looking at levy limit really will get addressed at the fall town meeting when we know much more about the economic conditions, the outside aid that's coming, and the situation in terms of what we close this current fiscal year with free cash and stabilization fund to address the property tax levy, which I know is the board's goal here. So we have an interim measure, but I think the long-term effort hasn't been lost. And again, I think it really will come into clarity at fall town meeting. The next goal is the traffic safety measures. Again, I don't want to spend much time here. I mean, we've been giving monthly reports. You'll have another one next month. And I don't want to read all the action items, but I think this really has been a demonstrated success in addressing a number of safety concerns across the community. And again, we'll continue to do those efforts in the months ahead. So
Hey,
again,
Paul,
it's a good outcome. Yes.
when we had the traffic listening session, I think it was 2 summers ago, there was a very, very long list that came out of that, and then subsequent things have come up. Are you finding, or is the traffic committee finding that are they kind of in a steady state, or are you still seeing surges of issues arise in terms of severity or number of them?
I think it depends upon time of year. Right now with things, with both the pandemic and also the fact that it's winter months, and the activity and the concerns slow. Right now we get more concerns on mailboxes than we do in terms of traffic safety, because of the snowstorms. But I think again, in 2 months when people are back outdoors, April and May, and heading into the summer months, I think we're going to see more of a surge of concerns. Particularly if activity picks up, with the increased, vaccinations and so forth, and the process going forward. So no, I think we're in a bit of a lull right now, but we're mindful of, you know, what will come as people get back outdoors in the nicer weather. The next one is the criterion report regarding the fire stations 3, 4, and 5, and what's to be done next and what's the plan. The Permanent Building Committee is evaluating the proposals for the North Fire Station reconstruction expansion project. I believe their subcommittee is meeting tomorrow morning to look at what's been received, and again, will come before you at an upcoming meeting, either in 2 weeks or certainly within a month. In my discussions with the fire chief, Gary Ryan, where we go from here is we really go to Station 3, which is Roberts Field. He believes that in any scenario that station remains, and that we really need to undertake a similar renovation and expansion of that station. However, it's my basis that you really can't proceed with that until you get Station 2 done. You know, what you need to do is complete the construction, reconstruction, get occupancy, let the community see what's taking work there in terms of a modification of a station with the modular construction and the retrofitting. And then I think that builds the momentum to then proceed back to the town meeting for Roberts Field. And then when that's completed, then I think you can do the calculation in terms of what is the status at that time in terms of cost, apparatus, and so forth, in terms of, do you then proceed to a fourth and fifth station in terms of in terms of fire locations, as well as apparatus and staffing and so forth. And I just think that if we were to do that now, it's just going to become outdated and become speculative. Whereas, you know, I think at this point, the best thing to do is let's get the work done at North, proceed from there to Roberts Field, and then decide 4 and 5 in terms of which, if any of those options make sense going forward. And then we'll have a better sense at that time on current costs, current analysis, current, you know, methods in terms of what makes sense at that point in time. So basically, there's, you know, most of the activity under this goal right now is getting ourselves advanced with the completion of the project that's underway. And hopefully by the end of summer, we'll be at a better place to say, okay, where do we proceed in terms of, you know, going forward on this goal. The next one is implementation of means of providing accurate and
Paul, I'm
current.
sorry, I was
sorry.
trying to find my mute button. I just have a
Oh, sorry.
question. So
Sure.
are we sitting on any kind of liability right now with 3, 4, and 5 in terms of like code compliance or compliance with
No,
or you know, general risk that has to be mitigated before we even talk about any renovation anyway?
no. If that were the case, then the building commissioner and/or our safety compliance officer would have us close or abandon those facilities. So, you know, again, it's not where we need to be in terms of going forward. But no, I don't think that there's an active liability at this point in time that's would warrant such action.
Thank you.
The next one is the goal pertaining to the website and the listing of board and committee members on the website. We're continuing to refine the list of elected and appointed officials and town meeting reps, and trying to keep it current with the address, email address, telephone numbers, who's the committee chair, vice chair, and so forth. The reason we're sort of adhering to that is we still can't find an effective web-based product that can perform these functions out in the market. And so we're going to continue to sort of keep it together with as best we can. Again, it's not in the format that I think anyone would like as a final finished polished product, but I think we're able to get the information, the core information out there. So again, we keep our eyes and ears open. I think, you know, one of the challenges is, you know, if you look in terms of a nationwide basis, there aren't a lot, outside of New England, there aren't a lot of, you know, government structures that are similar to the town meeting, you know, multiple committee model. It tends to be more county government and council manager form of government in other parts of the country. So, you know, the market isn't as robust as one would see out there in terms of, you know, what would seem to be a readily achievable product in terms of a simple task of providing elected and appointed officials and their histories and appointment dates and expiration dates. So we're providing that in a form that, you know, in the one area you can see all that information by going to the elected and appointed officials list. And then if you know, so I think we're providing the essential information. It's just not where any of us would hope to ultimately be, you know, but again, it's the best that we can given the circumstances that exist. The next one is considering restarting local events. You know, we just haven't exited the pandemic or the regulations, the health regulations on the pandemic. So as we sit here in, you know, early February, it doesn't seem that Memorial Day is going to be a viable option for a gathering because of the lack of vaccines that are out there right now for the public. I mean, it looks like this stage 2 of 75 and older and 65 and older and teachers and so forth, that it may be April timeframe before we, you know, get that completed. And then the problem is that if it's a shot vaccine, or even if it's a Johnson & Johnson vaccine, it's, you know, I think we'd be hopeful we could get to it by Memorial Day, but it's likely going to go into the summer, which even makes the 4th of July as a bit uncertain at this point, and perhaps unlikely for what I'd consider to be the traditional 4th of July parade, you know, the 2-hour event and out of town participants and so forth. What may end up happening, if it's possible, is you may have a more, you know, a more limited activity. I mean, obviously we can pull together a Memorial Day parade rather quickly, and, you know, at the high school and McCarthy School and so forth, and local officials and veterans. And unfortunately, that might end up being the model for the 4th of July, if we can even pull that off. Just have some recognition and some, but again, until we can get gatherings and you know, by the health regulations, we're just not able to do that at this point in time. So we'll just have to see what the guidance is. But right now, it appears that we'll be under restrictions, perhaps through the summer at the earliest. And you know, some say we may be wearing masks through the end of the calendar year. We don't know. But anyway, we've not forgotten about it, and we're continuing to recognize that people want to be reconnected. And if there's something that we can do as a community, you know, we'll certainly be poised to act, hopefully as quickly as possible, once we get some window to do something. And then the next goal was the recommendations of the Vision and Values Committee. Well, we did that this evening. As I noted, you know, we've touched upon that, so we don't need to spend any more limited time this evening. And then the same thing with the age friendly. I just would note that, you know, we've really, as Fred and Deb noted, we really have poured a lot of administrative resources in terms of personnel into this effort. You can see it across the whole gambit of the town, from public safety to the library to health to building, you know, to veterans agent and so forth, and human services. I mean, we're really, you know, trying, you know, making this a supportive effort. And as I noted, we're submitted the grant application as well, which, as we're nearing the end, again, as you acted upon earlier this evening about the progress of the Diversity, Racial Equity and Inclusion Committee. Again, you did the proclamation this evening. You noted the vibrant website that they have, and again, the completeness it has in terms of agendas, videos, minutes. Chief Spinney, Human Resources Director Gene Pazielli, and I believe tomorrow night, Business Development Director Lisa Maroney is, meeting with the committee. And again, we're all looking to, assist in this effort for the community. And then the final one is the updating of the board's policies. And I know that that's something that the board is, contemplating and will be addressing in the months ahead. So.
Actually, I will give a quick update on that. I have been working on standardizing the policies and making some of the changes that we talked about, select board from Board of Selectmen and so forth. So I'm hoping to have that ready for presentation at our next meeting to go over that, and in addition to perhaps proposing a couple new policies for us. So, and I will try to get the updated document to everybody a few days extra before the meeting. It's about, I think 35 to 40 pages, so you can have a chance to look at it before the meeting. So,
So Pat, if we've noticed a couple other things, should we just send that to you?
If you want, yeah,
Okay.
that would be good, sure.
Great, thank you. The next item I have is the revised draft of the spring annual town meeting warrant. 2 weeks from this evening, you're scheduled to sign the warrant for the spring annual town meeting. I've sent this latest draft of 42 articles to Paul Haverty to get him a head start. Some of the work is still ongoing, like the planning board is public hearing on the zoning articles is scheduled to continue on Wednesday. So we should be getting final text on that. The only material change from the list I provided to you 2 weeks ago is I have added a article, it's now Article 10, and that's to a financial article in terms of financial resources that may be needed to address the PFAS, groundwater monitoring wells and other related issues pertaining to the PFAS activities that are taking place now at Richardson Road. The remediation plan was submitted electronically the end of last week by the engineer. I want to provide you with a hard copy of text of that. All I have is a copy of the receipt that the plan was submitted. I saw a draft of that plan, but I want to provide for you, and I was seeking it today, and I'll hopefully have it for you tomorrow or Wednesday, is for you to actually see what the remediation plan is submitted to the state for review. And in summary, it's basically a bunch of monitoring wells and soil borings around the site so that we can get a better determination of where the contamination exists, if it's migrating and so forth. And so, so again, I have placed an article on the warrant as a placeholder because, we just want to make sure that we're able to meet the financial obligations that may be required going forward. Aside from that, the warrant is good. Sure.
When you say remediation plan, have they determined that at least some of the sources from 54 Richardson Road and there's something to remediate, or?
No, but you have to have a response plan, and then from the response plan will come the remediation.
So they still,
right.
They're still working on the source.
Right. Yeah. So they'll be the draft that I saw last week had monitoring wells basically around the perimeter of the property and inside locations, and some were concentrated in different areas. And I think from that response plan would then ultimately be a determination and then become remediation. Now that will probably be sometime into the next fiscal year, but I just want to make sure that we have a placeholder in case something develops in the weeks ahead, because coming back to this town meeting warrant, much like we've seen the town of Westford and do and so forth, we're probably not going to town meeting for the sessions until June. So there's a window there. So I just have a placeholder in terms of, I'd rather have the article and not need it than need it, not have it. So that's sort of where, why I have an article there in terms of the response plan has been submitted. It obviously has to get reviewed and approved by DEP, and then they'll begin the work of installing monitoring wells and doing test borings and so forth on the property and the town's right of ways. So, and again, I'll get you that as soon as I can get you a final copy. I didn't want to send you a draft because I'm not sure the final is the same as the draft that I saw, last week.
And
So
I just have one other question for you and the board. So I know zoning articles are typically in the fall. I had a few people express concern to me about some of these zoning articles could be significant changes for the town. And should we be leaving them at the end where they're, being addressed after we've voted to extend the meeting time past 10 o'clock and we're losing people, or it's the third night of town meeting and we're losing people, or should they be brought up further? I don't know if you guys have an opinion about that, or if we just always put them at the end.
my only thought is as you said, the primary purpose of the Springtown meeting is financial, and then
Right.
fall has been more towards zoning. I think we're looking at probably a 3-session town meeting. So it's unclear, and obviously people can take things out of order if they choose, but you're right, in terms of ordering it, I'm open to whatever the board's preferences would be. But clearly we're not going to get it done in one night like we did last year.
Right, but we can do order changing. We don't have to decide that tonight. I mean, I agree with Virginia. I think some of these, we probably should take the zoning bylaws out of order and decide on the beginning of a night where everybody's fresh and, and sharp, and then.
Yeah.
So you're suggesting don't change the list, but have a plan to take them out of order?
Yeah.
Well, I just don't want them to be adjusted at 10 o'clock at night.
Right. That's the concern I'm hearing, because I haven't been through too many town meetings, but I understand that's typically what happens.
Yeah. I mean, what you can do is let people know that basically, that we don't know how far we're going to get on a given evening, but we intend to start the next session with zoning article, and do it that way. And that's what you don't know. As we know, you just don't know how far you're going to get on a given session. And so I think, as you said, if the concern is that these are considerable articles, then basically say we're going to start the next session with these zoning articles. And then again, when you get to the end of that next second session, you do the same thing, saying, look, when we come back, we'll start with these zoning articles. And then it sort of addresses that. The problem is we don't know where we're going to finish on any given night, and what, and therefore you don't know where you're going to be. So it's, the town meeting has been very receptive in the past to taking things out of order. In terms, because really what happens in the first night is we get the budget underway, and part of it is to free up Neshoba Tech so they can go, off to a later meeting that evening, usually in Groton. But who knows where we'll be in June, what the conflicts might be. But that, I think the traditional process would begin with the budgets, get the operating budget done, get as far as you can that first night. You also have the consent agenda, which will be out of order as well. And then you just pick up on the second night, with zoning, and go from there.
All right. I mean, we can again do that on town meeting night and do a vote right there on the floor, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then, like I said, even though it appears that we won't be in a position to hold the town meeting session, in April as per the bylaws, the format of the warrant that you will sign in 2 weeks will say the senior center, on that, last Monday in April. And again, as the chair did last year, you'll go to him and the moderator will go to the senior center that night and adjourn it to a date in June, probably the third Monday in June, so that you have enough time, for 4 sessions before the, people take off for the 4th of July to get the work of the town done. But again, that'll happen in the due course of time. So that's where we are with the warrant. The next item I have is the Maya Risk Management Award, and I just want to just take a moment, more recognition. at the Mass Municipal Association in Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association annual meeting that was held last month, the town of Chelmsford was recognized for a risk management award. And the real person I wanted, the text of this is in the Beacon this month if you had a chance to look at it. But one of the things that really got us recognition on this was, really the efforts of our public health nurse, Darcy Veal, who really came on board in her employment with the town during the COVID pandemic and really hit the ground running in terms of doing contact tracing and confirmation of cases, and really has now transitioned into the flu clinics and so forth. And has been a tremendous resource to Sue Rosa and others who have been part of this coordinated effort. And so we nominated Darcy and the efforts, and it was nice that we were recognized by Maya for the ongoing efforts that, and again, there were other ancillary work, but it was just an impressive sort of start of her employment with the town during what was certainly an unprecedented time. So I just wanted to take a moment to recognize the town for the award, but also Darcy in particular, who has really been, a tremendous resource to Sue Rosa in dealing with the demands that are ongoing with the pandemic. And then lastly, under my my presentation report, I just wanted to again note once again, and we touched upon it earlier, we have submitted the DLTA grants to the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments. As we've experienced in the past, they don't give us a huge time notice or turnaround time. It's in fact, it was sort of less than a 2-week window. But we did submit, and we did hear today, although as I mentioned earlier, we haven't received the contract. So we will get support from the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, which is our regional planning agency, for assistance with the age-friendly plan that Fred Brusso and Deb Sirianni presented earlier. I also mentioned about the assistance for the implementation of also helping us determine the sewer capacity needs for demand in the town. And then finally, we're also worked with Evan to submit an application and get assistance for the Vinyl Square project in terms of the Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee is moving forward with the process to pursue perhaps infrastructure improvements in Vinyl Square. And they really want to have an interactive web page and really dynamically engage the community, for this process going forward. We had a formalized proposal in the committee's meeting tomorrow night from Katie Enright and Howard Stein Hudson for that work. And we also now have some assistance from NIMCOG. So we'll work with the committee tomorrow night, but we're just trying to again bring resources to the table to help with the planning efforts of the community. So that will, I'll get you the signed contracts as soon as I get that paperwork from NIMCOG, which I thought was going to be today, but perhaps will be tomorrow or Wednesday. So that concludes my report this evening. I do have a couple of appointments for your confirmation. One is for Ryan Dooley for a 3-year term that would end in June 30th of 2023 to the Energy Conservation Committee. And the other one is for Lisa Grasso for the Middlesex Canal Commission for a term ending June 30th, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve the town manager appointments of Ryan Dooley to the Energy Conservation Committee and Lisa Grasso to the Middlesex Canal Commission for the terms presented.
Second.
A motion, a second. All in favor, Pat?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So the next item up on the agenda, we need to appoint a select board member to the Route 3 Highway Interchange Advisory Board. So we had a request from Evan Belansky, the Director of Community Development. He is looking to get each of the Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, and EDC to appoint someone onto this committee. So I was asked if we would address that tonight. Any interest, any comments?
I'm just trying to understand from Evan's email, is the commitment one meeting or multiple? Are these daytime meetings or evening? He says the 17th and the 18th. Is that?
My understanding, there were nighttime meetings. Does anybody want to take it, or, I mean, if not,
It doesn't matter to me who takes it. So is it, Paul, is it one meeting or is it multiple, or do you not know yet?
I believe it's multiple, because this is the whole idea of engaging with the community in terms of, getting some data and study and reports back. So I believe that the consultant will would work on the 17th and 18th, but I think it'll be, there'll be future dates.
I'm just, yeah, it doesn't really describe. I mean, I don't mind.
Groton Road, Dunstable, Drum Hill, and Chelmsford Street, is those the three sections?
Yes.
Yeah.
It seems like there's an awful lot to be done, and but I'll take it if you want me to. If you need somebody, Kenny, I'll take it. If you want somebody else, it's up to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind if you take it, George, and if it's something you need backup on nights you can't make it,
Yeah,
I'd be happy to fill in.
If you need help, let us know.
No problem. Thank you.
So do we have to vote, or we just appoint him, or just let him run with it?
I don't think.
I think you as chair can designate George to do it. Yeah.
Okay. It looks, I just emailed Evan, got a response back. He said it was one meeting on the 17th. So.
In the evening? Is that okay, George?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Just click off this.
Minutes? Is that where we are?
I was waiting to see if that was going to respond to the evening question.
How many members on that committee? Excuse.
I don't know how many total. I know there's going to be 3 from the boards.
He had also reached out to some town meeting reps, and so I think he's got a few people lined up.
Yep.
Okay. So with that, do we want to go into the meeting? Oh, George, it's 7 p.m. at night.
No problem.
So he did answer me. All right, so we can go to the meeting minutes?
Sure. I'll motion to approve the select board regular session minutes for September 8th, October 5th, and November 2nd, 2020.
Number 28.
September 28th, October 5th,
Oh, I
and
thought-
November 2nd.
I thought you said September 8th.
Oh, sorry.
A second.
A motion second, all in favor, Pat,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Virginia,
Aye.
and I vote aye. With that, we'll go to liaison reports and referrals. We'll start off with Pat.
Okay, just have a couple of quick things. If anybody's interested in hearing about the Neshoba budget for the upcoming fiscal year, they're going to have their budget hearing tomorrow, Tuesday night at starting at 6:15. And then at their regular meeting, which starts at 7 o'clock tomorrow, they will be voting on that budget. They do ask that you get in touch with the superintendent to be allowed access to the meeting. So if anybody's interested, you can do that tomorrow. And the other thing is that the library has tax forms, federal and state tax forms, if you still do them by hand, which I do. So I was glad to see that they have their tax forms in. And if you're uncomfortable going into the library to get them, you can call them and they will provide curbside service for you. That's all I have.
George, any liaison reports?
I'd just like to compliment Susan, the health department for all the accolades I've heard throughout the town for all the thing at the Elks and then at the town hall. And I guess they've done a tremendous job, and I'd like Sue Rosa and her gang to get the credit they deserve. And I'm sure, especially at a time like this when people are getting on it going to Super Bowls for being up front. I mean, these people are right there, and they're dealing with elderly people like myself. So I appreciate. I just wanted to make sure that I pass that on, because many people have mentioned it to me along the way the last few days. So that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Virginia.
Yep, from the school committee, on February 23rd, the school committee meeting agenda will include an opportunity for public comment on the school budget for the next fiscal year. And that budget was presented at their last meeting if you want to go find some reference material. The planning board has some public hearings this Wednesday. There will be a continued public hearing for the Springtown meeting warrant articles regarding the zoning bylaw or proposed bylaw changes for Center Village. Another set that addresses e-commerce, fulfillment centers, ghost kitchens, and dark stores, and then another set that addresses new uses and definitions for adult use, recreational, and non-medical marijuana. There'll be a public hearing for 248 Princeton Street, which is the former Glenview site, for construction of a 10-unit multifamily development. And they will also be continuing the public hearing for the Oddfellows Fisk campus redevelopment and reuse and the addition of a multifamily unit structure. And those plans have changed since the last hearing. You can find that information online.
Okay. I just have a couple quick items. The ADA commissions on Chelmsford Commission on Disabilities has been meeting. Paul, we're going to take the ADA coordinator off that vacancies.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. We'll take care of that.
Who's the ADA coordinator?
Building commissioner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we did a search at how other towns have done it, and usually they came up with someone in the building department or someone in town hall. So that's how we rectified that. I didn't, Paul did, but there was a resignation on the DREC. And I just had a question from Phil, whether we wanted to fill that or not. He was fine if we didn't. I don't know if there was any questions or comments on that.
If the committee doesn't have a strong opinion, I'd be inclined to just let them ride the way they are, because we had 13 people.
Yeah, that was
Right.
how we decided how to fill it. We took everybody, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think,
Yeah, the input I got from
And they're really starting to find
Go
their
ahead.
rhythm. So I'm sorry, go ahead, Pat.
Pat, what were you gonna say?
yeah, and I was, remember at our last meeting, I mentioned that maybe we at some point should decide if that's going to become a permanent committee, and if so, set a set number of appointees and have them staggered terms like other committees are.
Yeah. And the feedback I did get from Phil is the committee was working well. They're making progress and they're moving along, and he was happy with the count he had now. So, and then the last thing, I just want to give a shout out to, because nobody really sees this, but To Pete Padula, we got hammered tonight with probably room requests to come in tonight. And between him and myself, I don't know if anybody noticed, a couple times I was looking sort of at my other screen trying to figure out who was trying to, because he was getting requests to come in, I was getting requests to come in. We were trying to figure out if it was a real person or not. And especially towards the later half of the meeting, they were just hitting constantly. And I do apologize. There was someone who I think is one of the candidates for the select board that was trying to come into the meeting and we missed it. And so I apologize to anybody if you were trying to get into the meeting. Pete was trying to ask questions who you were and what your street address was so we can verify, but people were leaving the room too quick for us to get answers. And the list was long. So I apologize if you're watching this recorded after the fact. We were trying to do our best to let people in the room that we knew who you were, but not everybody hung around to get access. So I apologize for that. With that, we'll take any press questions, but I don't, we're down to the last, I think 10 people in the meeting, and I know everybody, and none of you are press. And I don't see any chats.
I will motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Pat?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you. Stay safe.